been waiting 10 years for someone to return with proof that leaving was not a mistake. Emeka arrived on the afternoon the harmattan dust was so thick the sun looked like a wound behind gauze. The car, a silver Mercedes GLC, Lagos plated, tinted windows kicked up a red cloud that settled on the rusted roofs of houses that had not seen a new coat of paint since the last politician's funeral. Children ran alongside it barefoot. Women stopped pounding yam. The village had seen cars before, but not cars that belonged to one of their own. He had called his mother 3 days earlier from a hotel in Onitsha. "I'm coming," he said. She had not asked how. She had only wept, the way she wept every December when the other mothers boasted about sons who sent dollars and bags of rice from London, from Houston, from Johannesburg. Now, finally, her son was coming. And he was not coming on a bus. He was not coming with a Ghana must-go bag and stories about next year. He was coming with a Mercedes. The car stopped in front of the compound where his father had died of a stroke in 2014, where the zinc roof still bore the dent from a falling branch during the last rainy season. Emeka stepped out wearing sunglasses he had bought at a night market in Kuala Lumpur for 15 ringgit. He had practiced the walk in the hotel mirror, slow, unhurried, the walk of a man who had nowhere urgent to be because the world had already given him what he wanted. The sunglasses were unnecessary. The harmattan had dimmed the afternoon to a bruised amber, but he kept them on. They were part of the costume. His mother broke through the crowd before the car engine cooled. She grabbed his face with both hands, her palms rough from 20 years of farming cassava, and she looked at him as if she were checking for damage. "Emeka," she said. "Emeka," that was all. Then she turned to the car and touched the hood the way she had once touched his forehead when he had malaria as a child, gently, fearfully, as if the thing might disappear. The village came alive in a way it only did for death and weddings. By nightfall the compound was full of people who had not spoken to Emeka's mother in years. His uncle Okafor, who had called him a fool for wasting passport money in 2014, arrived with a bottle of palm wine and a smile so wide it looked like it hurt his face. "My son," Okafor said, clapping Emeka's shoulder. "I always knew. I always told them this boy has the spirit of enterprise." Emeka nodded and accepted the wine. He did not remind Okafor that the last time they spoke, Okafor had said, "You think Malaysia is America, you will come back with nothing but a skin disease." Young men gathered around the car, touching the rims, peering through the tinted glass. "Brother Emeka," one of them said, a boy of maybe 20 who had never left the village, "how is the life over there? Is it true you can pick dollars from the street?" Emeka laughed the laugh he had rehearsed, a deep, knowing chuckle that suggested he had seen things these boys could not imagine. "My brother," he said, "over there, if you have sense, money will find you. If you don't have sense, even the air will charge you rent." The boys laughed. Emeka did not tell them that for 8 years he had slept in a room with 12 other men, that he had been arrested in a raid on a construction site and held in a detention center where the guards called them monkeys and made them fight each other for extra rice, that the only reason he was not still there was because a Nigerian businessman named Alhaji Suleiman had needed a driver and had paid a lawyer to get him out. He did not tell them that the car was Alhaji Suleiman's. The arrangement had been simple. Alhaji Suleiman, a man who imported textiles from Guangzhou and sold them in Lagos, had bought the Mercedes 6 months earlier. He rarely drove it himself. He preferred to be chauffeured in his Land Cruiser. Emeka had been his driver for 2 years, ferrying him to meetings, to the airport, to the homes of women he did not want his wives to know about. Alhaji Suleiman was not a generous man, but he was a practical one. When Emeka mentioned he had not been home in 10 years, Alhaji Suleiman had looked up from his phone and said, "Take the Mercedes. Go for 1 month. But if anything happens to that car, I will make sure you never see Nigeria again." It was not kindness. It was inventory management. The car needed to be driven. Emeka needed to go home. The math worked. Emeka had told himself he would explain everything to his mother. He would tell her the truth, that he was not rich, that he was not successful, that he was a driver who lived in a room behind a warehouse in Shah Alam and sent money home only when he could hide it from the other men who borrowed and never repaid. He would tell her that the car was borrowed, that the sunglasses were cheap, that the small party he was planning to throw would cost him 3 months of savings and he would have to eat plain rice for weeks to recover. But then he saw her face. He saw the way she stood at the gate the next morning, watching the neighbors pass by. No longer the woman whose son had wasted his life in Asia. He saw the way she accepted the greetings of women who had previously offered her only pity. He saw the way she touched the car again, unconsciously, as if it were a talisman against every bad thing that had ever happened to her: the death of her husband, the stillbirth of her second child, the 20 years of farming that had bent her spine like a question mark. And he could not tell her. So he became the man the village needed him to be. He threw the party on the 3rd day. He hired a DJ from the nearby town, bought 3 goats and crates of beer and star. He gave 50,000 Nigerian nairas to the church, more than he had ever given to anything in his life. He danced with young men who asked him to teach us the overseas dance, and he moved his body in ways he had seen in Malaysian clubs, ways that meant nothing but looked exotic. His mother sat in a plastic chair near the car, and every time someone congratulated her, she looked at Emeka with an expression he could not read. Pride, yes, but something else. Fear. Maybe. The fear of a woman who had waited too long for something good and could not believe it was real. On the 5th day, his uncle Okafor came to him with a proposal. "Emeka," he said, lowering his voice though they were alone in the compound. I have a business idea. Importation of phone accessories. I have a connection in Lagos, but I need capital. Just 500,000 Nigerian nairas. You know, small money for someone like you. Emeka looked at his uncle's face, the face of a man who had never believed in him, and he felt something cold move through his chest. He thought of his savings, 340,000 Nigerian nairas, hidden in a bag in the hotel in Onitsha, money he had scraped together over 2 years by skipping meals and working double shifts. He thought of saying no. He thought of the village watching. He thought of his mother's face. Let me think about it, he said. That night, he sat in the car with the engine off, the keys in his hand. The village was quiet except for the generators humming in the distance and the occasional bark of a dog. He thought about the truth. He thought about driving back to Onitsha, returning the car to Alhaji Suleiman's associate, flying back to Kuala Lumpur and resuming the life he had lived for 10 years, a life of invisibility, of being the man who opened doors and carried bags and was paid just enough to keep him from leaving. He thought about his mother at the next village meeting, when someone would ask, "Where is your son?" and she would have to say, "He went back," and everyone would know what that meant. He started the engine. The dashboard lit up, blue and alien, and for a moment he felt like the man they thought he was. He drove slowly through the village, past the closed shops and the sleeping houses, past the church where his father's funeral had been held, past the school where he had once been the brightest student and the teacher had said, "This boy will go far." He drove until the tar road ended and the dirt road began, until the village was behind him and there was only darkness and the sound of the engine and the dust rising in the headlights like ghosts. He drove back. He always drove back. On the 7th day, his mother told him she was sick. She had been sick for months, she said, sitting on the edge of her bed in the room where he had been born. A pain in her chest, shortness of breath. She had not gone to the hospital because she had no money and because the village hospital was a building with no doctors and because she did not want to bother anyone. But now Emeka was here, and he had a car, and he could take her to Lagos, to a real hospital, to doctors who would know what to do. Emeka listened to her describe the symptoms, vague, shifting, the kind of symptoms that could be anything or nothing. He looked at her face, which seemed older than he remembered, the skin loose around her jaw, her eyes cloudy with cataracts she had never mentioned. He thought about the car. He thought about Alhaji Suleiman. He thought about the phone call he would have to make. "Mama," he said, "we will go. I will take you to Lagos, the best hospital." She smiled. It was the first time he had seen her smile without the shadow of doubt behind it. She reached out and touched his hand. "My son," she said. "My son who went and came back with everything." He called Alhaji Suleiman that night from the hotel in Onitsha, where he had retreated to escape the village's constant attention. The call went to voicemail. He called again. This time, Alhaji Suleiman answered. "Emeka." "Alhaji." "Good evening, sir. You are enjoying your holiday?" "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." "Alhaji, I have a small request. My mother is sick. I need to take her to Lagos for treatment. I was wondering if I could extend Alhaji Suleiman's voice changed, the way it changed when a supplier delivered late or a customs officer asked for too much bribe. "Emeka, I told you 1 month. My daughter is getting married in 3 weeks. I need the car for the wedding, the photographer, the decorations, the bride's entrance. Do you think I will put my daughter in a taxi?" "No, sir, I understand. I only though you thought." "Emeka, you are a driver. Drivers do not think, they drive. Bring the car to Lagos by Friday. If it is not in my garage by 6 p.m., I will report it stolen." "Do you know what happens to people who steal from me?" Emeka knew. He had heard the stories. Alhaji Suleiman did not go to police. He went to other men, men with connections, men who made problems disappear. Emeka had seen a man who had stolen from Alhaji Suleiman once months later, in a market in Kano, begging with one eye. "Friday, sir," Emeka said. "I understand." It was Monday. The village was 12 hours from Lagos by road. His mother was in the village. The wedding was in 3 weeks, but Alhaji Suleiman needed the car by Friday for preparations, for the arrival of guests, for the endless Nigerian wedding rituals that began long before the actual ceremony. Emeka sat on the edge of the hotel bed and looked at the car keys on the nightstand. He thought about driving to Lagos, dropping the car, and taking a bus back to the village. He thought about telling his mother the truth. He thought about the look on her face when she realized that her son, the returnee, the man with the Mercedes, was just a driver who had lied to a whole village. He thought about the note he would leave. On Tuesday morning, he told his mother they would leave for Lagos on Thursday. "I need to arrange some things," he said. "A friend in Lagos who works at a big hospital. I need to call him, make sure everything is ready." She nodded, trusting him completely, the way she had trusted him when he was 10 and said he had not stolen the money from her purse, the way she had trusted him when he was 19 and said he would be back in 2 years with a degree and a job. On Wednesday night, he packed his small bag, the same bag he had carried from Kuala Lumpur, a bag that contained 3 shirts, 2 pairs of trousers, and 340,000 Nigerian nairas in cash. He walked to the car in the dark. The village was asleep. The generators had stopped. The harmattan had cleared, and the stars were so bright they looked like they were falling. He stood beside the Mercedes for a long time, his hand on the hood, feeling the cold metal. He had written the note in the hotel room, rewritten it 5 times. The final version said only, "Mama, emergency in Lagos. I will call you. Do not worry. Emeka. He had left it on the kitchen table, weighted with a stone. He had not explained the car. He had not explained anything. He told himself he would call her from Lagos. He told himself he would send money. He told himself he would come back someday, with a real car, with real success, with a story that did not end in the middle of the night with a borrowed Mercedes and a lie too heavy to carry. He started the engine. The sound was loud in the silent village, but no one came out. He drove slowly, past his father's house, past the church, past the school where the teacher had said he would go far. He did not look in the rearview mirror. He had learned, in detention, that looking back only made the leaving harder. He drove through the night. The road was empty, the kind of emptiness that made him feel like the last person in Nigeria. He stopped once, at a filling station near Benin City, to buy fuel and a bottle of water. The attendant looked at the car, looked at Emeka's tired face, and said, "Oga, your driver day sleep." Emeka almost laughed. "I am the driver," he said. The attendant looked confused. Why would a man in a Mercedes drive himself through the night? But he took the money and said nothing. Emeka arrived in Lagos at 4 p.m. on Thursday. He drove to Alhaji Suleiman's house in Ikoyi, a white mansion behind high walls and guards who carried rifles. The gate opened before he could honk. Alhaji Suleiman had been watching for the car. Emeka stepped out and handed the keys to a houseboy who appeared from nowhere. Alhaji Suleiman did not come out. Emeka stood in the driveway for a moment, looking at the house, at the Mercedes that had carried him home and would now carry a bride he would never meet. He took a bus to the mainland. He found a cheap hotel in Yaba, a room with a fan that did not work and a bathroom shared with 6 other rooms. He lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He had 340,000 Nigerian nairas. He had no job. He had no home. He had a mother in a village who would wake up and find a note and a missing son and a story that made no sense. He did not call her. He told himself he would call when he had something to say, when he had a plan, when he had fixed everything. But the days passed, and he had nothing to say. He moved to a cheaper hotel in Oshodi. He started looking for work, any work, driver, security guard, loader at the port. But Lagos was full of men like him, men who had gone and come back with nothing, men who lied about their papers and their experience and were willing to work for half of what they deserved. He spent money on transport, on food, on a new phone when his old one was stolen in a Danfo bus. The 340,000 Nigerian nairas became 200,000 Nigerian nairas, then 100,000 Nigerian nairas. He still did not call. On the day of Alhaji Suleiman's daughter's wedding, he saw the pictures on Instagram, a girl in a gold dress, stepping out of the Mercedes, the photographer's flash catching the tinted windows, the crowd cheering. He looked at the car and felt nothing. It was not his. It had never been his. The only thing that had ever been his was the lie, and even that was slipping away. He moved to Kano. He heard there was work in the textile markets, loading trucks for the trip to Niger and Chad. He found a room in a compound with 10 other men, all of them running from something: debts, wives, the shame of empty hands. He worked when there was work. He starved when there was not. He stopped checking his phone. The battery died, and he did not recharge it. He told himself he would get a new one when he had money. He never had money. 5 years passed. He was 40 years old. He had a job as a night watchman at a warehouse in Sabongari, earning 25,000 Nigerian nairas a month. He had a room with a mattress on the floor and a kerosene stove. He had not spoken to his mother in 5 years. He had not spoken to anyone from the village. He had become, finally, the man his uncle had predicted, a man with nothing, a man who had gone and come back with less than he left. Then, one night, he checked Facebook for the first time in years. He had borrowed a phone from a coworker, promising to return it in an hour. He typed his brother's name, Chijioke, the younger brother who had stayed in the village, who had married a local girl, who had never left and never wanted to. There was a profile. The picture was of a man Emeka barely recognized, heavier, older, with the same wide forehead their father had he sent a message. "Chijio, it is Emeka." The reply came in minutes. "Brother, where are you, Kana?" "Working. Mama is dead." Emeka read the message 3 times. The letters did not change. He typed when, but his fingers were shaking and he could not press send. He put the phone down. He walked out of the room, into the compound, into the street. It was night. The market was closed. The only light came from a generator running in a nearby shop. He walked until his legs hurt, until he was in a part of Kano he did not know, until he found a wall and sat against it and realized he was not breathing. He picked up the phone. He typed, "When 3 months ago, stroke. She died in her sleep." Emeka stared at the screen. He thought of his mother, the last time he had seen her, standing at the gate of the compound, touching the car, looking at him with pride and fear. He thought of the note he had left. He thought of her waking up and finding him gone, the car gone, the story collapsed like a roof in the rain. He typed, "I am sorry." I could not. He stopped. He could not what? He could not tell the truth. He could not stay. He could not be the son she needed. He deleted the message. He typed, "I will come for the funeral." The funeral was 3 months ago. I did not know. There was a long pause. Then, she kept your note in her Bible. Every day, she told everyone you took her to Lagos, that she got better, that you were coming back for her. She waited. Emeka read the message until the screen went dark. He did not recharge the phone. He sat against the wall until morning, when a policeman on patrol told him to move or be arrested. He moved. He walked back to the warehouse. He went to work. He did not reply to his brother. He did not go to the village. He changed his Facebook password to something random and forgot it. He continued his life: night watchman, warehouse, room, sleep, repeat. The years passed. He became 45. His hair grayed. His back hurt from the hard mattress. He saved nothing. He wanted nothing. One night, a truck driver at the warehouse asked him, "Oga watchman, you have family?" Emeka looked at the man. Young Hausa, probably married with children, probably wondering why this Igbo man was alone in Kano with no one. "No," Emeka said. "No family." The truck driver nodded, as if this made sense. "Me, I have 3 wives," he said. "Too much trouble. Sometimes I think, better to be alone." He laughed. Emeka did not laugh. He watched the truck drive away into the dark, toward the border, toward someplace else. He thought about the car. He thought about the village. He thought about his mother, who had kept a lie in her Bible because it was the only thing her son had given her that she could hold. He thought about the truth that he was a driver, that he had borrowed a car, that he had run away in the night because he could not bear to be seen. He thought about how the truth would have killed her faster, or maybe it would have set her free. He would never know. He sat in his chair outside the warehouse, the night stretching before him like a road with no end. The generator hummed. The stars were bright. He was alive. He had not gone to prison. He had not died in detention. He had not been deported or beaten or broken in any of the ways he had feared. He had simply disappeared, and in disappearing, he had become exactly what he had always been afraid of being: a man who left and never came back, a man whose greatest achievement was a borrowed Mercedes and a note on a kitchen table. The sun would rise in a few hours. The workers would come. The trucks would load. The world would continue, indifferent to his presence or absence. Emeka closed his eyes. He did not pray. He did not dream. He simply sat, a man in a chair, waiting for nothing, owed nothing, owing everything. The car had long been sold. The village had moved on. The wedding was a memory. The bride now a mother herself, probably driving a newer Mercedes, probably never knowing that her father's car had once carried a man home to a lie he could not sustain. The only proof that any of it had happened was a note in a dead woman's Bible, and Emeka, alive in Kano, with nothing to show for 50 years except the ability to sit very still and wait for the night to end. He did not cry. He had learned, in detention, that crying changed nothing. He had learned, in the village, that pride was a currency more valuable than money. He had learned, in Kano, that a man could disappear completely and the world would not notice. The only thing he had not learned was how to go back. So he stayed. He watched. He waited. The sun rose. The day began. And Emeka, the returnee, the man who came back with everything and left with nothing, opened his eyes and continued his shift. The car was gone. The mother was gone. The village was gone. But the lie remained, perfect and unbroken. The only thing he had ever built,